Now you might be thinking, haven't I already seen this video? Yes and no. I did make a video with this title and premise, but in that video, I found that the best tanks were all event vehicles. Some people wanted me to make that video again, but examining just tech tree vehicles. So here we are. I've renamed the other video appropriately. With the sheer number of vehicles War Thunder has, you would think finding the best one would be difficult, but I actually had a few already in mind. Just be aware that while I have played pretty much every tank in the game, there are a few small gaps in my knowledge. If you disagree with my ranking, feel free to leave your own in a comment. But before we get into it, I want to talk about my sponsor. I'm partnered with Apex Gaming. They make pre-built PCs. If you're looking to upgrade, you should check them out. Link is in the description and comments. You can use my username as a discount code on checkout. Now back to the video. The first tank that I looked at was the Object 906. It's always been pretty powerful, but it became even more so recently. Gaijin decided to down tier it to 7.7, despite its performance being more than acceptable. It may not be extremely versatile, but in the role of a classic light tank, it is absolutely perfect. In terms of mobility, it accelerates pretty well, and its max speed is fairly high at 74 km per hour. Best of all, it can reverse at top speed, making it great for quickly getting out of bad situations. But of course, the gun is the biggest draw for this monster. You might think an 85 is a bit small for 7.7, but it has surprisingly good penetration. The APHE penetrates 245mm at point blank, and the angled performance isn't too bad either. You can penetrate pretty much everything you see, even side-on mouses. And of course, being APHE, it does a tremendous amount of damage. If you really don't want to worry about aiming, you can take the heat round. And thanks to the autoloader, it can fire one round every 4 seconds, which makes it devastating on flanks. Last but certainly not least, it has a dual-axis stabilizer. Considering most tanks in that range don't have any stabilizer, it's a very nice thing to have. There are a few things that hamper it, namely poor gun depression and mediocre turret traverse, but at that point in the Soviet tree, you should know how to work around these setbacks. And being a typical Soviet tank, survivability is also pretty abysmal. The bustle rack makes it incredibly easy to one-shot, and it also only has 3 crew members. An amazing vehicle to be sure, but I don't think it's the best. Next vehicle is a 75 Jumbo. If I had to guess, a lot of people will probably say this is an odd choice, seeing as it's now the same BR as a Tiger and Panther, but the Jumbo is still an incredibly capable vehicle. It has the ideal mix of speed, armor, and reaction times. The cannon may not be great, but it doesn't matter much, because you can usually disable the enemy first anyway. Even against Panthers, the armor is still pretty good. Unless they're literally point blank, they'll have trouble going through it, and Tigers are even worse off. Though one of the Tiger's shells can somehow overpressure it by hitting the mantlet, so that's a bit of a toss-up. The Jumbo can easily solo multiple targets at once, even if it gets up-tiered. It has roughly the same armor mobility as everything else, and a much worse gun, but the stabilizer compensates. In down tiers, it is an absolute demon. The gun's poor penetration is no longer an issue, plus you have the same mobility as everything else, while having much better armor. That being said, against Tiger 2s and Yak Panthers it gets destroyed. Both of those tanks are under BR'd, but that's just how things are. If the 75 Jumbo didn't go up against so many long 88s, I might say it's the best tank in the game, but I don't see that situation changing anytime soon. So basically it's great at CQC, but garbage on wide open maps. And finally, what I think is the best tech tree ground vehicle in the game, the USH 405. To say the least, the USH is a very unique vehicle. It may not look very appealing with its thin armor and small crew, but it has a lot going for it. Despite its relatively low power to weight ratio, it accelerates pretty quickly and has a high top speed. It's fast enough that it can usually just rush forward, hide someplace, then ambush enemies as they drive by. This is made easier by the fact that it's almost completely silent. It makes very little engine noise, and obviously doesn't make any track noise. Not only that, but the rocket launchers just don't make sounds sometimes. It makes it pretty hard to fight back against something when you can't tell where it is. This is compounded by the absurd hit effects of the rockets. It's like every shot that connects is a flashbang. Of course, the rockets are the main draw of the USH. It has a total of 18 rockets, 9 in each launcher. They can be fired in tandem or individually. They can also be fired extremely quickly, so if you're in a bad situation, you can just spam rockets. The enemy doesn't have time to react. Their damage is a bit inconsistent. Sometimes they 1 or 2 shot, and sometimes you have to empty the entire launcher. It's probably the easiest and most enjoyable vehicle to play, though it isn't very fun to fight against. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.